Today, I'm joined by one of recruitment industry's most well-known names, Simon Bliss of the Team Network. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much.
So Team is a network of typically small and medium-sized recruitment businesses, which under your stewardship has grown to 550 members at last count.
Correct. We look after startup solos, micro businesses, really scale ups up to about 2025. We've got a few 30 or 40 that are bigger than that who stay with us, but we're supporting the startup and smaller boutique end of the market.
Fantastic. Yeah. And perhaps slightly less known, you in 2020 sold a recruitment business called Principal People, which I understand was health and safety focused.
Yeah, we were in the fascinating world of health and safety recruitment, which is a business I bought in 2010. The first day I got into recruitment, I bought Principal People with a bit of an ego. This little recruitment business, this would be easy to turn around. It wasn't making money. It was a loss maker. It was cheap. I thought, it's got 15 staff. I've run a business before in logistics with 250 staff. I'll be able to sort this out. The next 2 years were nightmare. I got educated pretty fast. I got referred to Team. I joined Team, embraced one of the training providers that they had, a guy called Jeremy Snell, who came in and trained my team and me in a 3-day intensive program. And I thought, I get this now. And I looked at the team and then realized that it's a process business and a people business. And we didn't have the process. And when I looked at the people, we didn't really have the people either. So I stripped it back to one other and me, a youngster with a fire in his belly who actually had joined me in those 2 years. He was a nephew of a mate of mine. And he became my number two. He was 22 when he joined. He now runs a brilliant business on his own, but I'm jumping forward now.
So this is 2010, you bought the business?
Yeah, we started, I bought the business in 2010. We understood recruitment in 2012, and that's when things started to take off.
Okay.
So strip back to 2, and then if we fast forward, had a great journey from 2012 through to about 2018, when we grew to about 40 staff. Mm-hmm. And I was then approached by a mediator, Eric the Viking from Copenhagen, wanted to get into the UK market. He had a group of 30 offices in Scandinavia, but recognised that the UK was a much bigger market. And he was temp generalist, and he was looking to get into specialist. And we were sort of killing that health and safety market at that time and doing
contract
really well.
And perm, or just?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It was contract and perm. One of the things I looked at quite early on was, why we don't get paid until we deliver, and I said, why don't we get paid? Is there more consistent revenue? So I did, and also Team helped with that. I asked lots of questions of the other members, and we opened a contract desk back in about 2013, 2014. And a youngster took that on and really, really drove it. And it became a third of the NFI in the business, which, as you would appreciate, really upped the value. So more retained revenue. We had a retained desk from 2016 onwards, and moved up the food chain to look at senior leaders rather than just managers. Our average fee was $7,000 before, and then we pushed that to at least double figures on the average, and that was much better.
So sort of numbers by the time Eric the Viking came in and made an approach, what sort of numbers were we doing? So headcount was 40.
Yeah.
So give the people watching this an idea of sort of GP, that sort of thing at that time?
We had 21% on our contract base, and we had about 19 growing percent on our perm business. With that wonderful mix of retained and perm, with some upfront payments. But we were working on about just below 100 jobs a month, and converting about 70% of those. The retained help contract was good, and we did quite a bit of contract on those middle managers and senior manager roles. It's going to take 6 months to find someone. Do you want someone in place? So we did quite a lot of, my contract guys were all over the perm guys to say, if you've got a guy on a 3 month notice, let us know.
Yeah.
And they would always try and jump in and sell a contractor for 3 months, which was cool.
Very good. Yeah, that cross pollination is great, isn't it? When that starts, you've cracked it to a degree when that starts happening.
Yeah.
And so in terms of your motivation, because you sold a business prior to this, hadn't you, as well? So just go back a step further. So what was your motivation for selling this time? Was it an approach out the blue, or was something triggering in your mind?
My motivation when I bought it was to sell it.
Okay.
And like any daft entrepreneur, especially an egotist that thought he could take the recruitment business by storm, I had a 5-year plan. It took 10 years. But the goal was always to sell. And I was open with that with the staff, and bless their hearts, I had a leadership team of 7 in the end with the 40, and they were with me from 2015 onwards, and they all stayed. And probably from 2016 onwards, we never lost anyone, even in the lower business, who we wanted to keep. There were some people we hired on the way that, recruiters aren't generally great at hiring, but I was lucky we found a wonderful formula of hiring some people that would fit into the culture. We had a brilliant EVP, and they all stayed. It was, and I was able to reward them and incentivize them on the journey. So we gave quite a bit away in some share options and bonuses, because we had the earn out for the last couple of years.
Okay.
And so they knew it was happening. There was a nice handover period with the Danes to make sure people were comfortable, and all the little dominoes dropped into place, really.
Fantastic.
That doesn't always happen.
It doesn't always happen. Yeah, no. I was going to say, actually, that leads me really nicely onto. So you'd bought a business with a view to scaling it, growing it, and selling
Completely,
it. Great.
Yeah.
What were you? So having realised that you wanted to strip it right back to take it forward again, what were you focused on? Into what made the business so saleable in the end?
I referred to it a little while ago. It was developing the leadership team. Well, firstly, people, then process, and that they bought the leadership team and the processes, and a diversified client base of obviously. And I talked about, you referred earlier to contract contingency, but a lot of that contingency was exclusive, and then a retained group as well. But they bought what we were doing. In fact, to his credit, Eric, who he had a house in Canary Wharf, and we were in Farnborough. So the logistics of that. Bless his heart, he arrived at 8 o'clock one morning, and he walked in, and all my guys and girls were on the phone.
Wow.
And he went, wow, in one room. And he went, wow. And he left at 6 p.m. and it was still as noisy. And he said, I've got 30 offices in Scandinavia and nothing is like this. So he was sort of sold from the word go, really, which was lovely. And that made it easy. He bought what we had, and that was a process, it was people, and it didn't rely on me.
I was going to say, there must have been an element of you effectively making yourself redundant to be able to step away in the end, and that leadership team was the key to that, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, I did a bit of recruitment and at some senior level, but I wasn't really on the tools that much. I did some projects with some of the more senior people, kicked off the retained product with health and safety leaders. So we worked with Rolls-Royce and supplied a VP for health and safety for them, who then became global head of health and safety, who worked with Balfour Beatty in their global head, and then handed that over to my team, who were actually better at recruitment than me. I always wanted to be a leader. I'm not a brilliant manager either, but I had some great managers underneath, and they were all over the process. And we had great training from people like Jeremy Snell, who really embedded those processes with my team. And they were youngsters who came in, knew nothing, but were little sponges and soaked it up. So it made some great recruiters out of some youngsters that hadn't ever done recruitment before, which is wonderful to see.
I can see the passion when you talk about that particular team. Are they still in situ now? What they're doing now?
Well, I'm quite proud of this. I mean, when you sell a business, you shouldn't get too emotional about that. It's like a house. You know, you've moved on, you bought another house. And 5 of the people of my leadership team have left and started their own businesses.
Wow.
And to me, that is a bit of a weakness with Eric the Viking, bless him, in terms of investment and nurturing and supporting the talent that was there. But I love the fact that they've grown into be business leaders of their own. And Josh and Naz are running a brilliant business in ESG that's working, internationally with 12 staff after 3 years. And some of the others are solos, but on their journeys to grow their businesses as well.
All team members, hopefully, they.
A few are, yeah. Some haven't. They've said, it's maybe it's not right for us, but yeah.
You might think they've learned everything they need to learn from you, and they think that's all it is.
They're doing great. All of them are doing great, and it's lovely to see.
Isn't it fascinating to think of the modern workforce? People do see themselves in jobs for much shorter periods than they ever did. I guess when I was got my first job, I envisaged that would be the person I worked for a long period of time. And that is, I think, the employers, the clients that I work with now that are doing this brilliantly, they are actually saying to people, listen, give me 2 or 3 of your best years and I'll get you to this point if you give me this. And it's sort of like a contract between the two, that you'll do what you're going to do for that period, and I'm expecting you to go and do something. I'm actually expecting you to go and do something else after 2 or 3 years. Really interesting shift in dynamic, because I think people who embrace that are finding they're getting the best from young people, albeit for a shorter period of time.
I was the last startup from that leadership team has just joined team last Monday. He joined Principal People 12 years ago, so the retention was longer. Than I think it was down to the employee value prop. We've really looked after them. That's dissipated a little because people have gone their own ways and friends have gone in different direction. But
what did that look like? The EVP. What was the
it was
pillars of that?
It was the energy of the room. It wasn't a boiler room, so let's not get that right. It was pretty flipping active. There's no doubt about that. And on Fridays we got in at 7:30, but we left at 5. So a bit of a so I let them go a little bit earlier, and then we would go to the pub like recruiters do. But it was high energy and process driven, and we had holidays together. I went to 4 weddings of the team. It felt like family, and that. And you referred to it a bit earlier. That was part, when you sell the business, you feel that a little bit. You're leaving those people behind. But like kids that grow up, they grow up, they leave home, they make their own families. So it was time. And I was 64 then, so that was enough. 10 years was hard, especially when I had the 5-year plan, it doubled.
Yeah, and you're picking it up, you're saying a sort of a later juncture in life. We've just, spoke to guests before who've started Recruitment 18, for instance. So 54 is
wow.
Yeah,
it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different. It's very different.
You talked about people staying in jobs. People change careers now. So I changed careers several times. That's the beauty of the modern world. There's transferable skills, and if you're a good recruiter, you can spot that either in a candidate or a potential employee. If someone's got those natural communication, engagement skills, I know lots of recruitment companies that hired employees by people coming to their office for a job they might have advertised and go, have you ever thought about recruitment?
Yeah.
And grab them.
Yeah.
And there's been a few people that have developed their teams by hiring some candidates for jobs they had for other clients.
Yeah.
And it's spotting those that have that natural skill and transferable skills.
So 2010, you're just starting out, so it takes you 18 months to get up to speed. You bring the team,
I count every day. It's pain.
24 months later, you kind of think, okay, I've got my head around this. I've got one member of staff, I've got me, but I know where I'm going, which is great. What was recruitment like back then? Because we're talking 15, 16 years ago now. What was it like back then? And you're obviously so involved with 550 recruitment businesses today.
Yeah.
What was recruitment like back then for people who were?
We were hiring health and safety managers, and health and safety advisors and fire risk assessors and stuff like that. So it was a niche. So it was a good market to be in. After 2008, 2009, the public sector business had disappeared. They just didn't have any money. So it was, and construction was down because of the financial crash. So it took a little, so those 2010, 11, 12 were a bit tougher because the market hadn't got going. Private sector was still going, but construction was down, and no, 40% of our business was construction. Then you've got a big lump in manufacturing, engineering, and then you've got almost any industry where there's enough people to employ. EY near the Shard employ health and safety people because they employ lots of people, and you want, you've got to make sure the environment is safe, even if it's a smart office. So it was the old-fashioned stuff, getting on the phone, trying to win clients or get back clients that were on the database that had forgotten about us because they'd stopped picking the phone up. I had an analogy when I started to learn about the business. In really up until about 2008, the phone didn't stop ringing, I think, in principal people. Because people wanted health and safety people. That health and safety was a big thing. And there were guys with clipboards everywhere, checking things out. The phone stopped ringing in 2008, and then PP started to hit the ground. And so the staff, when the phone rang, it weighed 1 ounce, and they picked it up in half a second. When they needed to make an outgoing call, it weighed 10 kilos. So they'd lost that energy to make the outgoing call and BD. And what I was fortunate enough doing was getting some youngsters in, training them properly, giving them some confidence about what we say and how we introduce people, and they got it. They absolutely got it, and we started picking the phone up and talking to people again. And I know, and we were talking about that today at our team meeting just over the bridge at Tower Bridge at Marsh. Picking the phone up works. People almost are not doing that now. They're doing automated emails. They're working with scrapers from LinkedIn and doing some automation with some tools and products to drip feed messaging into candidates and clients. But picking the phone up and going to see people still works.
I think I did a post only recently about an approach I had from somebody, and it just stuck out a mile because it's clearly been written by somebody who'd bothered to read the profile versus all the other ones where it's clearly been an automated approach. I think what do you think about AI and automation in recruitment? What's the feeling of the members?
We had a big discussion on it today with the panel. It's coming. It's already here. People are using it. If we're smart, and we'll wait and see what the technology can bring us, because there's new stuff all the time. It is saving us time on some of the stuff that is laborious and administrative.
And not client-facing. Yeah, the client-facing stuff.
You ain't going to replace that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in high volume, blue collar, there's some great automation tools out there to talk to and have conversations with nurses who come off a shift at 10 p.m. at night and then hate their job and want to look for a new advert, or lorry drivers, warehousemen, etc., who come off shifts. Recruiters are shut, so they can have some chat with a bot and they can have an interview. But I think it won't work for white collar. It won't work for senior roles. People want to talk to people, and that's what
I've heard.
Where relationships
absolutely
really happen.
And I've heard people say that recruitment will, or if it hasn't already there, will move to AI and automation driving the sort of lower margin, higher volume stuff.
And resourcing, perhaps.
And then at the other end of the scale, you've got your real specialists who will continue to develop relationships with clients. They'll use AI and automation to do some of the process stuff, but it'll create more time for them to speak to clients about everything other than recruitment. I guess that means the generalist recruiter is probably not efficient enough, or dare I say cheap enough, to compete in this market, and isn't a specialist. They're going to find the dinner eating at both ends. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, generalists are getting squeezed. I mean, there's no, clients and candidates can find each other in this sort of generalist market now. Indeed, HR and internal recruitment will put a job on Indeed, and they'll get 100 replies. And so if they will find each other, and it's cheaper than using a recruitment company that might be a generalist. And I've seen them dropping their fees. There's not so much. You need differentiation to succeed in recruitment. We've got 34,000 recruitment companies in the UK. That's more than in America, for God's sake. So right? We're in a very third biggest market in the world, albeit Japan is the second, and that's a bit weird because there's lots of corporates and just Japanese businesses there. So we're probably the liveliest after the US, and we've got more recruitment companies than them. Average number of people in a recruitment company is about 5-6 now. So of those 34,000, 28,000 are under 10, definitely. It's highly populated, and it's less jobs now than there ever was. So if you're not differentiating, if you're not doing things differently, if you're not thinking about some guaranteed revenue, it's going to be really tough out there.
Fascinating. Yeah, that really is. That is exactly what I'm hearing. That the generalist recruiter is struggling for because they're not specialist enough. They're not finding the reasons to discuss with their clients things other than recruitment. It becomes a transaction. Once it becomes a transaction, typically people say, "Well, what's the cheapest way I can do this?" And as you say, there's lots of other routes these days, isn't there?
Possibly an exception to that is where you've got a regional generalist who's built a relationship with some clients over a number of years. So there's a lot of trust and knowledge and understanding of how their client works, what type of person fits into that company. And some of those generalists have formed like mini RPOs for those businesses.
Yeah.
So if they've got, if they're in Chichester Recruitment, one of my members, Phil, he focuses on that market, and he'll work with some businesses there, and he'll find a CFO or a temp receptionist because he understands the dynamic of what's going on in that business. And he can use, if he hasn't got access or understanding of the skill set for the role, say the CFO role, and he's not a finance guy, he's got a supply chain in team that will help him with that, and he can split the fee, which is where. So we've got a few of those generalists are forming like mini RPO models, with a supply chain and support of other team members, and being able to support their local businesses, understanding the dynamic, having built up relationships with the owner, the CFO or the CEO, and know where they're going. So that's probably the exception. But if we are general with a generalist, they're getting squeezed. Definitely.
You mentioned that's a really unique part of team, isn't it? The fee split. So, I mean, people will know, recruiters will know, they might have a relationship with a recruiter in another business, and they might decide to do one-off transactions where they can't fulfill. But this is actually an exchange, isn't it, where jobs are posted? And how does that work?
When I bought the business in 2020, it already had the trust, an umbrella of trust under the previous owner had developed it over a number of years, and they had a sort of notice board where the jobs were put on. But we've developed the tech, so it's much more intuitive now. So you can put a job on if you can't fill it, and say it's for a finance director in Manchester. Anyone who's got finance in their skill set will get an alert instantly by email to their account. There's a job for you in Manchester in your skill set. You can work this role. So there's an automation contact with the job owner, and you be the resourcing partner, and hopefully you look at the job spec, agree the principles of what the job is, the company, with the trust that that the resourcing partner won't approach the company.
Yeah,
we've had that. It's 6 years now, and I've only kicked out 3 people because of cheating on the team exchange. But it's last year the members shared 10.4 million in fees.
That's fine. And is it Simon? Is it always split 50-50, or is it up to the parties to agree what's what?
It's generally 50-50.
Okay.
But there are some generalists that suddenly get a finance job with their client, and it's a big fee. And they're happy to let the resourcing partner have 60 or 70% because they would never be able to fill that job.
Yeah.
And they're getting 30% maybe on a 20 grand fee, whereas they might normally, as a local generalist, get 100% of a 15% fee on a £35,000.
So £10.5 million worth of fees last year.
10.4.
Yeah, 10.4.
Not quite 10.5.
10.4 million pounds worth of fees
split between the members.
Brilliant.
And it honestly, it was a tough year last year. That kept the lights on for quite a lot of people. I've got lovely stories of team members that have been in 13 years. A solo recruiter, ex-Michael Page girl, based in East Midlands. So she's invoiced or split, and her revenue from that has been 1.2 million in 13 years.
Wow.
Astonishing. She would say she's a specialist generalist. She's done a lot of resourcing for the other. So a lot of that 1.2 was finding candidates for other members. And I'm really pleased to say I've had people that have. Quabina, who's based on the South Coast, I tell his story now and again. He's got a Craig David story. He joined on a Monday, was in restricted covenant, looked at Team Exchange on a Tuesday, saw a job he thought he could help out with, submitted a candidate on the Wednesday, candidate interviewed Thursday, offered Friday, and he started on Monday. And then Quabina invoiced £3,750. He'd been in a week, paid me 65 quid because he was a startup. So he got a good ROI.
That's a great story, isn't it?
So it's Craig David's story. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's take you back then to the sale. So 2020, just before COVID, during COVID?
We were on an earn-out. So we did some chunky bits. So the COVID definitely affected our last year because we were on that earn-out. And I would advise against earn-outs, knowing what the world is. But because I'd had two big lumps of very successful years in 2018 and 19, 2020 wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And people still need health and safety people. So we rode it through. It wouldn't have been as high as I'd expected, but hey, it was a good deal.
And so for people who are watching this that have never been through a transaction before, just talk about the nuts and bolts. So Eric approaches you. You agree a deal. What are the nuts and bolts from shaking hands on that to getting an exit? You mentioned earn-out. We've talked about the various ways deals can be put together. But just a little bit about yours.
Yeah. He offered X to start with, and I turned that down.
Okay.
And we didn't talk for 6 months. So it was fine. And we were merrily building. And I reached out to him just before Christmas and said, Eric, we like each other quite a long way apart from what we both expected. I gave him an update on how the business had grown. And I said, if two smart people must be able to find something that's on value on both sides. So we sat down again. He came back to the UK and we shared some time together at Farnborough. And he got enthused with the business because in the 6 months we'd taken on about 6 or 7 more people. It was 2018. We didn't have quite the 40 then. And he came into that noise at Farnborough and then got really excited about it.
Okay.
So I'll talk about perhaps a little bit later about choose your suitor because he was a good suitor. I'd already got the management team right. We diversified the client base. We've got some guaranteed income through contract and retained. So it was all sort of set up right. But you then come into due diligence. Which could kill a deal. And the good news is, and I mentioned it earlier, I was dealing with one guy who owned 100% of his 40 offices. He was 100% shareholder in all of his big group of businesses in Scandinavia. And so it became, you had to deal with one person. It wasn't a venture capitalist. It wasn't, a big corporation who would throw EY at you or Deloitte's for GD. It was about sharing some trust, and he bought into what we were doing and could see that there was some transferable stuff that he could take back to Scandinavia and rev up some of his rather tardy temp businesses. So there was a value for him and it became a bit egotistical for him as well. He was making a big jump to build a business in the UK, the world's third biggest market. And he had Scandinavia. You know, they've got 25 million people in Scandinavia. We got 67 million people here, and much more business. So we didn't do so much due diligence as you would do with a corporate, and it became a bit of an ego thing for Eric. He wanted to buy us, and that really helped in the negotiation. And they didn't kill us. You know, because a lot of under due diligence with big corps and venture capitalists, private equity, they'll offer you X, they do the due diligence, and then you get offered Y.
Get chips, yeah.
But that didn't happen. In fact, we nudged it a little bit because we were doing more business. So we had a ratchet in the earnout to earn more, which in fact we did. In the end, he offered 4, and we got a 6.5% multiple, 6.5 times multiple.
When he'd finished?
When we sold. So it was a good deal. He was happy. There was some transferable stuff he could take to Scandinavia. Weirdly, he gave me the job of COO for the group for a year, and it was slightly distracting for me in 2019 because I was trying to make sure that we were maximising what we were doing. But I learned a lot by going around Scandinavia and seeing what they were doing really well, but also what they were lacking. And in the end, I took Jeremy Snell out there to train them, and they loved him, and he revved them up. He revved up the Scandinavians.
Culture-wise, presumably, I'm just envisioning a bit more laid back, but maybe that's not the case. Is that what you found?
They were brilliant account managers. They weren't very good at selling. It was a bit of a tumbleweed thing. At 4 p.m. every day, places everywhere was empty in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, and it was all a bit quiet. It was fair, and people worked in tiny little silos and side rooms, not one big open plan office, no sales, real drive, sales function. So we had a few changes, changed country managers 3 times with different countries, sales directors I changed and gave it a bit of a rev. But I learned a lot from, weirdly, being COO of the group for a year, and it taught me a lot about recruitment, and also about spreading your wings internationally, because I hadn't done that before in any of the businesses I'd run. So that was cool.
Interested about what you said it a couple of times there, the energy that you had. Do you see the businesses that you're working with now through team? Is that energy still there in recruitment businesses, or are we businesses clearly done differently now? But that sort of in at 8, out at 6, going to the pub on a Friday. Are you still seeing that?
You got 550 businesses in a network. You see some different dynamics. I mean, there's everything. There's startups and solos, and we got a lot of solos. There's 200 out the 550 are solos, and some of those will grow because they're in their journey, but some of them are permanent solos. But we've got some guys that are killing it. I had a solo, Peter, up in the East Midlands. Weirdly, works in the banking market in London. In 23, he built 750,000 in perm from his bedroom, which is pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
So, which he made more money than 10-person businesses. But I in that cross section, of course, a bit like the market, we've got some flyers. Some youngsters that started 2 years ago that have got 10 staff now. And they're on a mission, and it'd be lovely to watch them. In 5 years they'll have 50 people. They've chosen markets that are really strong, resilient, and scalable. The ones I'm thinking of are in food manufacturing, and they could take their business internationally easily because they're working with businesses that are international already. Food manufacturing is global, and that will be the next stage. So, but we've got a lot of boutique businesses where the owner is the deal maker, and he or she they own the culture of the business. That's not a saleable business because the asset is the individual that owns it, but they're great businesses. And I think the stats are 3% of recruitment businesses sell, but it's a great place to be for those micro businesses that built a little family that they really get on well with. They all understand each other well. If they know their market, they make a lot of money, and they enjoy that because they've got that purpose. And you mentioned purpose earlier, and they that's enough for a lot of them, and you can make good money with those businesses.
And that was going to be my question. Do you think that coming out of COVID, we saw that solo recruiters, bedrooms, because that has become acceptable to work from home in a way that perhaps wasn't before, not unacceptable, but people were more willing to do it. How happy are those people? How happy are those recruiters sat at home, albeit making more money than they probably ever made before? Long term, do you think that's sustainable for somebody to be at home?
I know what you're saying. I'm lucky that team, established by previous owner Simon Garbett and now me, we've benefited from that because we've invited those. It's lonely being a solo, and we have 55 face-to-face meetings a year, which are regional, and we get those people together, and we have 29 WhatsApp groups, one for each region. And if you're in a vertical, we've got healthcare, driving, manufacturing and engineering. International is one of ours. So all the vertical markets have got their own WhatsApp group where they can bounce off each other. We also run probably 60 or 70 online sessions a year. So we get that network together, which gives them the phrase I used earlier, the community that they lack being a solo. So a lot of our solos say it's been a godsend. I might not, some of them don't do job sharing. Yeah. They just do it for the community and bouncing off other people. And it was lovely to see. I smugly sat quietly watching the rest of the room today, really sort of enjoying all the little conversations that were going on and people getting up and talking, introducing themselves to new people, new members, getting approached by existing members going, oh, you must be new, welcome, and sort of doing our job for us. Right. It was lovely to see today. And that's quite special. And it's a bit rare, for recruiters to be in the same room with recruiters, open up, collaborate, share ideas, challenges, which is difficult to do, but also jobs. So
that's definitely so. My background, as you know, was sort of contractor payroll, umbrella companies, and there was a period when I first started out where I think we all felt like we had the most guarded secret in the world. It was all very sort of inward looking, but then over time, legislation comes in. You realise that working together is going to probably get you a better result than sitting in isolation. And actually, eventually, you realise that they're not necessarily trying to nick your dinner.
No,
there's lots to be gains from collaboration. There's lots to be gained from learning from other people, and certainly the likes of team, I think, seems to be bringing that home, and it does fix a problem, if indeed it is a problem, of people wanting to work on their own. But ultimately, over a long period of time, you do want some human interaction, which previously would have come from hiring a couple of people and moving into an office. Yeah. What about offices? And of the 550, have you got any sense of how many people have an office? How many people are
That's a good question.
Remotely?
Quite a few of the solos have an office because they want to differentiate themselves.
Home and work.
And some of that might be in the garden. It's down the end of the garden and it's all lovely. Kirsty Craig's got a heated shed with underfloor heating. She walks down the garden for that. And she's been in team when it started. She's been in 32 years. So astonishing. Most micro businesses have an office. And they want to get back. There's a real energy to get back in the office. The osmosis of being in an office and around other people. There's a power in that. A bit like I said when Eric walked into Farnborough at Principal People. There is an energy around other people that's pretty inspiring. And I love being in the office. I've got an office with Andy and Bella and Guildford, and we've got 7 remote staff who come in now and again. We've got 2 new salespeople starting Monday, one in South Africa, one in Guildford. So we're going to have another one in the office every day. But there's a dynamism for being together. And a lot of them are going back to the office more often, so 3 days a week. Some of them are 5 days a week, which is wonderful.
It really is.
If you can balance that, there's lots of people that love the work-life thing of not having to commute and having an hour a day back, especially in the summer if they want to do stuff. So most are doing hybrid if they've got offices, but there's a real tendency for staff and owners to get more out of being together.
And that, you say, that is not polar opposites, but it's a long way from the 8 till 6 in the office 5 days a week and then pub on a Friday night, isn't it?
It's a bit weird, that, isn't it?
It is.
And we're not wearing suits anymore, are we? And ties.
No.
We were.
I've had this same shirt actually for 3 years now, because previously it had been worn out in sort of 6 months, wouldn't it? But I sort of roll it out every so often now. So your clothes last longer. Taking yourself back to the sale then. So the sale goes through, done the due diligence, and that was really interesting what you said, that had you've sold to a corporate, during my last sale, we were probably 3 months worth of due diligence. That's financial due diligence.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I don't know whether you've been through this process, but you get the questionnaire and you look at it, you sort of flick through it and you're like, oh yeah, I've got that. And then you actually go to find certain things and you haven't got it, and it takes a lot longer. So it took us 3 months to get through financial and legal due diligence. But it sounded like in your case, the Eric wanted to get a feel for the business, really. And he did that by spending time with you and presumably the staff, and sort of got there. So the day comes that the transaction happens, but you're going to stay on for 2 years because you got the earn-out. So
it was a stage payment, so it was an earn-out. So 2018 to 2020, the end of 2020 was the final payment. I was still in there running it, and with a year running the group as well.
Okay.
But that was okay, because we would get the staff were getting used to the new. They didn't get the keys until the last payment, so it still felt like Simon and the team, we've got control on this. They had no say in what they did with regard to changing a process, technology, overheads and payments. So we were still in control until the very last day. So it only felt like the end of 2020, I'm done.
And how did that feel?
Well, it felt a relief, because that was the goal, you know, when I bought the business, to sell it. And I'd built a fantastic team of colleagues and friends, and they'd earned a lot out of it in the journey as well. The key people all got a lovely slice of the pie, and everyone felt good about it, and the journey was fun. So that was cool. I'd already bought team. This is the weird thing, because there
was an overlap, was there, between the two? Okay.
Team came up for sale in January 2020, so I'm in my last year. So we then did 6 months negotiations and stuff, and then COVID happened in the middle of that. So there was a bit of haggling on the price, and I took the keys over on the 1st of October 2020. So I'd still had 3 months. I'm juggling handing the keys over, but the deal was really done. So I'd sort of already moved into the new house, if you see what I mean, or leaving the old house behind. So there wasn't much time to really think about it. I was non-exec for 2 years. That wasn't a great idea, because I was going back, you know, once a month to see the people, and they were being directed about from Copenhagen on about what to do and what changes there might be. So that was a bit of a distraction. And I was pretty damn focused on really getting team going. So that was a bit weird after that. So I felt there was a bit of, but the good thing was I had a purpose with team. If I'd just sold and sitting at home, you know, thinking that grass needs mowing, that would have been a bit different, because I think when you're running a business, you've got a purpose. And I mentioned it with the boutique businesses that never sell. The business owner who's the rainmaker, it's their little space, it's their space. They get a lot out of running a team, which end up in lots of ways being your friends and having a continual purpose. If you sell a business, all of a sudden you've got money in the bank, but what are you going to do now? That's a tricky one. Well, I was lucky. I had team came along, and I wasn't planning that, but I thought it was a good business, but it could be a great one. So that was the motivation there.
It's fascinating, Simon. You should mention, again, I think every guest that I've interviewed, they're almost, well, I think they're prouder of what it meant for other people than it was for themselves. So you very quickly skipped over your sort of part there and said, I've moved into something else, but you slowed down and said how good you felt about the effect it had on other people, that not only what they got at the time, but also where it's propelled them in their own careers. So it's fascinating, that, isn't it? That everybody who's been in your position of building something and selling it, nobody sort of sat there and said, yeah, I thought I was the bee's knees and that sort of thing. It's generally like, oh, it was great for other people. And you before we'd even finished the question, you'd almost moved on to, then I was into teams, then you onto that thing. So there's a humbleness that I think that perhaps, is that you, do you think that's across people who've been in that position before, do you think?
Yeah, I think I said at the beginning, the value of the business is the people that are left, which is generally the leadership team, because that's what they're buying. And they're buying the leadership team, they're buying the process if it's recruitment, and they're buying the future opportunity. So, yeah, they're not buying me. They might have bought what I created, but they're not buying me. But I think most business owners aren't the egotists that you see. They're not really. They want to create something of value. And in the recruitment world, our assets and what we work with are people. Our clients are people, our candidates are people, and our staff are people. So we love working with people. And if you can nurture and develop people to do a great job, develop themselves, they can grow. That's pretty damn rewarding before you take the money as well.
So no break whatsoever. No. In fact, there's the opposite of a break, an overlap. Yeah.
Entrepreneurs never really retire. They just think about other things that they can invest in, whether it's money or use their brains, or look at what other thing can I do out there now. Yeah, I think I see quite a few of my mates retired, and their golf handicaps are getting better, but and their lawns look fantastic, but I'm not sure it's for me.
It's not fully fulfilled.
Yeah.
Have you got a plan for when you do finally retire, though?
I don't. Like I said it earlier, I don't think entrepreneurs really retire. I might look at supporting the industry, investing, supporting some other leaders, do their own thing, help them on their journey. That's what I can see myself doing.
Going back for a day, a month with an old business is really interesting, because I found initially that I thought I was going to do these sort of lots of little things that are going to be really interesting. I was going to go in and I was going to give my advice here and advice there, maybe some investment things like that. What you realise is when you've been in the business and you've been driving it for so long, it's actually a massive come down for me to then go in and sort of be a bit part player in something that was happening. So I don't know that's how you felt when you went back in, or it was just the weirdness of going back and speaking to the same people in a different role.
Some of they wanted to do their own thing as well, and they honestly were good. So there was a minor conflicts at PP with what I thought they should be doing and what I thought actually Copenhagen should be doing to help them, because I felt if Copenhagen had thrown money at the guys at PP, they could have had 200 people in the UK by now if they'd incentivised them enough, but they didn't, and they didn't invest enough. So there was a disparity there. But they're all doing. 5 of them have started their own business now, which is wonderful. I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
that's
I can
cool.
tell. Yeah, really good. You mentioned before. Why do you think it is that? I knew it was single digit. I didn't know it was as low as 3%. Why do you think only 3% of recruitment businesses sell? Really interesting for me, because I've come from an industry which is one removed from recruitment, and transactions in the umbrella world are fairly frequent.
Yeah,
and there seems to be a drive to sort of consolidate and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Why is that not the case in recruitment, do you think?
Well, there's 34,000 recruitment companies, and most of the average number of people in is 5. The business owner's a rainmaker. They're the biggest billers, and they don't let go. They love that job. They like interacting with clients. They've got a few staff that they're nurturing and developing, maybe a consultant or 2, and then a resource, and then an admin person. So they haven't got anything to sell because they are the asset. So that's a tricky one. We're in a contingent world if it's perm, and that's difficult to sell any of that.
Yeah.
So it's the scale up businesses that sell, and there aren't many of them. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, due diligence kills deals. Especially if whoever's trying to buy is squeezing people. So there's not many deals. I would think, how many we got? 550. I know 10 deals that have gone through with team this year. That's out of 550. And some of those are tiny deals.
Are they?
Consolidation of little businesses, which you know would never hit the Recruiter magazine. I think if you want to sell your business, you've got to start 3 or 5 years out. You've got to build something with a diverse revenue streams, and you've got to have a leadership team and a process that you can sell, because they ain't going to be the boss. You know, he or she has got to start to learn to step back a little bit. They will always probably be the rainmaker. Very unusual that I wasn't really, even when I got into the tools a little bit, I started to give the work out to the youngsters who could eventually do it much better than me anyway. That was the best thing to do. You know, not be on the business, not in it, is what people say, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, I was lucky. I came in at 54. I'd run businesses since I was 22. So I've sort of experienced at running businesses without being too hands-on. So the leadership thing was quite selfishly easy. It was the recruitment bit I didn't get to start with, which is where I came unstuck. But I got there in the end. Yeah.
I think it sounds like you came in, you learnt what you needed to learn as a leader, and
slowly,
and then delegated, empowered people such that you had a management team that not only could take the business forward, but also were more than capable of going on running their own thing, which they've done. So sounds textbook. Sounds really textbook.
It is.
Simon, tell me about the significant others in your life. We've talked there about the hard yards that have to go into building a business of any nature. Forget recruitment for a minute, of any nature. The sacrifices that people typically make. Tell me about significant others.
Being an entrepreneur is a bit of a team event. You've got you need a management team if you're going to sell, but in some ways you need the resilience of a family.
I was going to say personal wise.
I'm lucky enough, but I started my business when I was 22. We got married when I was 27, and my wife, fortunately, is still with me. She's got amazing patience. So she's always known me running a business, really, and there's a lot of sacrifice in that, but a lot of support too, because you get highs and lows and challenges and cash flow challenges and all sorts of things that go wrong in running a business. So she's become amazingly resilient and with that, and patient, because there's long hours. And when I was running the logistics business, we had a business we were in Birmingham, so I was often away for a few days while you build that. But so that's key. That you need a bit of stability. And I've been lucky to have that. And coming into recruitment at 54, knowing that I've got all that stability and experience of running businesses, but also a grounded home life was brilliant.
And how would you? So again, very common theme: sacrifice, long hours, time away from the family home. How did you guys navigate that?
Weirdly, I'd always done it since the age of 22. So we knew what we were both getting into. She knew me really well, and we were boyfriend and girlfriend for 5 or 6 years before we got married. So it wasn't a rush, and we've made it work. It's been great. 2 lovely kids, one grandchild now, which is fantastic. And
how old grandchild?
He's 20 months.
Wow.
Sonny Bliss is 20 months, and he is a ray of sunshine. And my daughter's just got married, which is fabulous. She's in recruitment. Married an Irishman she met in the CBD in Sydney, and fortunately they've come home and they're both working in recruitment now, which is cool.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's good to see.
And in terms of giving advice to people, so people watching this, let's say, typically they might have aspirations of selling a recruitment business at some point in future. What 2 things would you say to them should they be concentrating on in the next 12 months to make their business potentially saleable?
have they got recurring revenue? Have they got a diversified client base? So they're not, 80% isn't with Balfour Beatty or whatever company you're with. What are you selling? Who's beneath you? What have you got to sell? If it's a really small business and there's a client base to sell, there's always something to sell in some ways. But make it as strong as possible. Ensure hopefully it's got a niche, whether it be regional, like I said, Chichester Recruitment or whatever, which has got its mini RPOs, or health and safety, or ESG, or food manufacturing. Be a special. Try and get people to think of you as the specialist in that market that really understands what they're doing. That has value. But the lot. If you said 12 months, they need to think about it a little bit longer, really. They need to plan, because if you can't start to think, right, I need to build a management team. That's going to take 3 years minimum. And there are other things you need to do to make sure your processes are really cool. If your fill rate is 60%, just showcase over 2 to 3 years, you can get that to 80%. If your contract percentage is 16%, push it to 20%. We were lucky enough to have 21.5% on contract. And if it's there over a 2-year period, Eric knew what he was buying on our contract desk. And so if you can show you're improving, the new owner can look at what he's going to buy and what he can build on going forward, because they're always buying future profitability. So show them a trend that's on the up.
And presumably one of the tips is to join team.
Well, it could help. We have some M&A partners. I was at Team Conference. Cameron Lang came up to me and said, Simon, he said, are you interested in selling? I said, yes, Cameron. I said, why did you pick on me? He said, well, 2 things. He said, one, I've been watching you grow that business over the past few years and it's on the up. And secondly, he said, my target ICP is people that are old and worn out, and you said you fit that bill perfectly. So when I stopped throttling him, he said, I've got a man from Copenhagen who's interested. So he already had someone interested to buy a UK business. So that was a real synergy. And Cameron was engaged with the previous owner of Team, and he knew how much money I had in the bank. So he knocked on my door. He said, Team's for sale, Simon. And I went, oh. I wasn't really interested in buying a business, but I thought Team had been such an impact on me to help me grow, understand recruitment, and then grow principal people with the partners like Jeremy that were involved, that I thought, that Team could be a great business. And we had 300 members, I think, then. Now we got 550. And I'm looking to grow we're looking to grow. Andy and I think we can get over 700 this year. Things are going well. I know the market's tough, but we're here to support people, and job sharing, collaboration, idea sharing, and the community are a strong message for smaller recruitment businesses to go, yeah, I like that idea.
Fantastic. Well, you used the word worn out there, Simon. In this last hour, anything but worn out. You've got a fantastic energy, unbelievable. And to say the overlap from selling a business, selling one business straight into another, selling that business and going straight into Team. It's a fantastic story.
I see people who are energized by running a business, and it's quite intoxicating, and not in the physical sense, but it is. You can see it keeps that mind buzzing. And it's always a challenge, and it is the purpose that you mentioned earlier. Because finding a purpose sometimes as an owner or an ex-owner is a struggle. But there is nothing like running your own business. And I encourage people that have got the right sort of balance. We have quite a lot of startups come to us, and we call them A, Bs, and Cs, a bit like you do jobs. We love A's and Bs, but Cs we turn away. But if a team leader or manager has proven that they can really grow a desk and it's now their time, we tend to open the door to them and give them a bit of a grilling about their their ability to, think about all the other things they got to pay for now, CRM systems, website, LinkedIn Recruiter, if they're investing in that. Have they got business acumen? But if they get through that process, they're going to win. We've got a bit of a comfort blanket that we can put around those. We've got some amazing partners in team that really support those startups really well. The Sonovate, Simplicity, Giants, and other businesses, websites that you can get on a pay-as-you-go basis rather than fork out $4 or $5 straight away. People like Gig, who give a CRM away for free for startups to get them on their journey. And lots of some of our partners give 2 hours free advice on setting up your company, making sure you're VAT registered. You don't want to pay team your monthly fee plus 20% if you can't claim it back. So lots of little tips and guidance for free at the beginning for those startups, and we want to encourage them, especially if they're good people.
But it's as somebody who's recommended it into my clients, and I've got at least one member, potentially two coming up. I can vouch for the portal with the documents, which again, you start a new business. What does T's and C's look like? Because you've worked in a big business, it's always just been there. You click a button and away it goes, and somebody else's job to make sure they're up to date. So simple things like documents and keeping them up to date is something that you don't necessarily think about when you sat on a desk, but you certainly have to think about when you're doing it for yourself. So just a very small example of where I think it's been great. I say get the emails buzzing through all the time about the fee sharing, and to hear it's north of £10 million is a fantastic initiative in a period where recruitment's been tough for a lot of people, as you said, and keeping the lights on for people by being able to share something they wouldn't otherwise been able to fulfill. I think it's a great message. And as I say, Simon, wonderful to spend some time with you. Fantastic energy. And next time we sit down, probably it's 750 members in team.
Be great.
Yeah, good man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Cheers.